Hello, I'm Umbreon Libris, and this is the 6th week of my Pokémon Legends gameplay journal. I finished last week looking for wisps and unknown and old verses and all that kind of stuff. That's also what I started the week doing. With a visit to the coastlands, I picked up the last of the unknown that I was missing. I already had all the wisps from there, and I had a few old verses left to get. While I was around, though, I also made sure to stop by and pick up Giratina and Thundurus as well. I actually needed a little bit of Indigo's help to figure out Thundurus, because when I went back to Khajiit to have her tell me again how to catch these Pokemon, she wouldn't tell me. So Indigo gave me some hints to help me figure it out. I had to sleep over and over and over again, but I did get the storm that Thundurus shows up in. I had a really hard time figuring out how to actually engage with it, though. I realized fairly quickly that I needed to stun it before I could battle it, and I kept throwing my Pokemon at it, and occasionally I did hit and stun it, but for some reason it would always turn around and just put up its defenses. I actually never quite figured out what it was that I needed to do to get its opening, but I did get it, and in battle, caught it pretty easily. Next up, I headed north to the Icelands to collect the wisps that I was missing there. And in the process, I found a shiny Bergmite. I didn't actually notice right away. I saw the wisp, and that's what I was soaring down towards, and I was distracted talking to Indigo at this time. So I did not notice the shiny sparkle, even though it was directly in front of me, and I didn't realize until like a few seconds later that I had heard the shiny chime. I looked around and saw the Bergmite, but they have a fairly subtle shiny, so I wasn't entirely sure if that's what I was looking at, or if it was just the lighting. But to be safe, I caught it, and then I went up to another Bergmite, and confirmed that that one was different. So that was pretty cool. It had been a while since I'd found any shinies, and Bergmite itself is not a particularly exciting one, but I was definitely interested to see what shiny Avalugg would look like. And I'm really happy with it. The new accent color on the tusks, that orange, it looks awesome. I'm still kind of disappointed at how small Avalugg are. I was hoping to find an alpha one, expecting that its size would be significantly bigger, a little bit more comparable to the size of the Lord Avalugg, but this shiny is way cooler than any alpha could be. With all 107 of the wisps collected and all 20 old verses picked up, I stuck around to the Icelands a little longer, hoping for that blizzard where Tornadus would show up. This one was thankfully much easier. Not easy, but easier. Back at the village, I was really excited to see how this wisp quest was going to turn out. From the beginning, I realized that because Spiritomb are normally made up of 108 spirits, the little girl was probably the last one. And even though I was right, I did not expect the events to play out quite the way they did. I thought I was collecting all these wisps into my odd keystone, and that when I got the 108th one, it would somehow transform into a Spiritomb, and either battle me right there, or it's just caught. But no, my odd keystone was like a temporary vessel, and it was more of a distraction, really, because when the little girl enters my odd keystone, a Spiritomb shows up behind me. I think the Spiritomb was like playing a trick on me and pretending to be the little girl and all 107 wisps, but I'm not totally clear on all that, actually. But I got it, and honestly, this quest is one of the most satisfying side things you can accomplish, so I'm pretty happy with it. Next up on the Pokédex checklist was Landorus. This one was once again kind of annoying to just engage with. I just couldn't get the right opening, but at least I more or less knew what I was doing, so it wasn't terribly frustrating. I just kept at it until I got it. And that meant I had to go speak to Khajiit again. I had that empty spot in my Pokédex right after the other forces of nature. I was pretty sure there was gonna be a new one. I was not expecting this. This is probably my least favorite Pokemon ever. Yes, even worse than Cryogonal. There is one thing that I appreciate about its design, and it's that it's not just a reskin of all the other genies. All the other forces of nature look like just type swaps and not particularly interesting ones. So I do appreciate that this one is actually different. But It is the girl genie, and that's all there is to it, really. Of course the girl is pink. Of course the girl is slim and not buff. Of course the girl is covered in heart shapes. Of course the girl is a fairy type. Of course the girl is the herald of spring and a symbol of fertility and sex. And to make things worse, you encounter it in the worst possible location. Scarlet Bog is a pain in the ass of a place to go looking for this Pokemon. There is no grass for you to hide in. There are aggressive Pokemon all over the place. You can't creep when you're in the bog, and an Amoris will spot and run away from you really easily. Thankfully, I did get a little bit lucky, and I managed to stun it and actually engage it in battle fairly quickly. I mean, it still took me a long time, but it took relatively few tries of actually stunning it to be able to engage in battle. And that meant that I completed the Pokedex. Well, minus Arceus. It really bothers me that Arceus, the Pokemon that requires you to catch every other Pokemon before you can encounter it, is not the last item on the Pokedex. It makes it seem like I have not actually completed the Pokedex, but Laventon says that I did, which means it is time to once again ascend to the top of Mount Coronet and play a little tune for God and see if it'll accept me this time. And I think it did accept my music, at least, because a stairway to heaven appeared before me. I can't say that that was enough for Arceus to accept me, though. I spent 2 hours throwing myself at this battle. It was incredibly difficult at the beginning to even just figure out what my openings were to throw the bombs at Arceus. It didn't help that the controls are not super responsive. The way that you slow down running when you're aiming a bomb, or how slow it is for you to get up after doing a dodge, none of that is intuitive, and so your character doesn't actually act the way that you expect them to as you're clicking the buttons. So it's very easy to make a late mistake and ruin your whole run when you're very close. I had multiple times when I was on Arceus's last bar, and then I make a mistake, and I'm out. But at least in this encounter, I did actually get to battle Arceus multiple times and get a real sense for how powerful Arceus really is. And so even though this encounter had plenty of frustrating elements to it regarding the controls, in the end, when I defeated it, it felt pretty good. My favorite part, though, is that I didn't catch Arceus. Arceus gives me a piece of itself, basically gives me a little Arceus avatar, and that's what I get to carry around with me. But I did not catch Arceus. That's great, especially in a game that directly frames Arceus not just as a creator in lore, but pretty much as a creator in fact. And now I have an actually complete 10 out of 10 Pokedex. Laventon gave a nice little speech, Silene presented me with a shiny charm, and I felt like I was pretty close to actually being done with the game. But I had a few things to tidy up, and of course the whole end of the Daybreak storyline. First thing I did was go grab the reveal glass from Kojita so that I could turn all of the forces of nature into their Therian forms, which are overall much better than their incarnate forms. But I say overall because I don't think Amoris is much better. I'm told it's a spiny softshell turtle, which at least means that I understand it anatomically. I still don't understand why this choice was made. But whatever, it's not like I'm gonna use this Pokemon ever. Most of the rest of the Daybreak stuff went fairly predictably. Massive mass outbreak in the coastlands, slight interruption by Ray for a battle. I also happened to find a shiny Staravia in the coastlands. Not at any of the outbreaks that I went to. I have actually never found a single shiny at any outbreak throughout the entire game, but I'm happy to have shiny Staravia. Then I was sent on a wild goose chase to the Icelands just to deliver some mushroom cakes, but on my way back, I realized that there was something fishy going on. Massive mass outbreaks in the Highlands was completely unremarkable, although since I was in the Highlands, I decided to give another shot at the most difficult challenge in the game, the Ultimate Balloon Race. This was actually the only thing that I had tried and then given up on, so going back and actually getting it felt pretty good in the end. Massive mass outbreaks in the Icelands was a whole different story though. Until now, every massive mass outbreak that I'd been to ended pretty much just as I was finishing the research into the third outbreak that I actually stuck around for. So I thought I had the time to just fly around, go to all of the outbreaks just to see if there were any shinies hanging out, and then choose the ones that I actually wanted to do my research on. Except this time, I ran out of time. The massive mass outbreak ended before I could finish the research. Mai could only suggest that I go back to Jubilife Village and wait for a new massive mass outbreak to break out, but she gave me no indication of how I could get one to respawn or how long that would take. So I kept going back and forth between Jubilife and the Icelands. I slept repeatedly in the Icelands waiting for the right weather. None of that worked. Well, I guess time worked. Eventually another massive mass outbreak did spawn in the Icelands, but I was starting to get desperate by that point. But that meant that I was able to complete the research into the massive mass outbreaks and find out what's causing them, right? Right? Yeah, no. Turns out this update is called Daybreak just because we look at a pretty sunrise, I guess. There is no resolution to why the massive mass outbreaks occur. We spent all this time researching only to go, well, I guess we're just gonna tell people to be careful. Really unsatisfying conclusion. But at least we'll get to find out what all that trickery was about, right? With the mushroom cakes? No? No, we're not gonna address that at all? Okay. Going back to the village did unlock new battle modes with Ingo for me, but neither of them seemed particularly exciting. There are some quests to do with one, so I might try that, but I don't know. And the Eternal Battle Reverie with Arceus, again, just doesn't seem all that appealing. So I spent the rest of my time just doing research and trying to get my last star. The one important thing that I did learn in this time, though, is that Alpha Avalugg is not that much bigger, and it's still disappointingly small. But it was all enough to earn full star rank, which I think is a pretty good place to end this journal series on. If you've been listening from the beginning, thank you. I hope that you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed this format, so I might do it again. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter, but not of this series.